And the legend will never die. Tributes are being paid to the Formula One commentator Murray Walker, who's died aged 97. Legendary Formula One commentator Murray Walker has died at the age of 97. Walker served as the lead commentator for Formula One coverage in Great Britain from 1976 until 2001, working for both the BBC and ITV. His broadcasting career has spanned more than 50 years. Well, plenty of tributes, of course, have been made today. Three-time Formula One world champion Jackie Stewart said there will never be another Murray Walker. It is a great loss. We are all at a certain age where we are seeing friends and colleagues slip away, which is very sad. But in the case of Murray, he will never be forgotten. Another Formula One world champion, Damon Hill, said, "Godspeed, Murray, and thanks for so much. The legend will never die."
You're watching Sky News. This is Sportsline, and these are our headlines this evening. The voice of Formula One, Murray Walker, has passed away at the age of 97. Well, we start with more on the sad news that legendary Formula One commentator Murray Walker has passed away at the age of 97. He commentated on Formula One from 1978 to 2001 and became synonymous with the sport for generations of motorsport fans. Many people involved in the F1 world have been quick to pay tribute to a man who helped define it.
He was a wonderful character, always so full of life and full of fun and positive enthusiasm. We all loved him in sport, and in a high-level sport where you are universally loved and respected and regarded, I must say I would think is quite unusual. And because that's the kind of personality he was, he was so good at what he did. He had a passion for Formula One that is almost unsurpassed, I would say. So, the whole of our sport will be hugely saddened by this news.
This is the brilliance of the guy. He summed up somehow my career achievement, and also what it meant to him, and also what it meant to other people, and what it meant to me, in just a simple act of I believe, complete, sincere emotion, but it was drama as well. So he was brilliant at it. He knew how to communicate. But I remember him from my, very early days as a commentator on motocross, which was one of my very first loves of motorsport at all. And, his voice commentating on the names of the time, and Banks and Vickers and all these people. That was where we first heard him. And then he moved over into Formula One and, of course, became the legendary Murray Walker.
On F1 from 1978 to 2001. His unique high-octane style is forever ingrained in British sporting culture. When Damon Hill won the Formula One world title in 1996, an emotional Walker cried, "I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat."
He summed up somehow my career achievement, and also what it meant to him, and also what it meant to other people, and what it meant to me, in just a simple act of I believe, complete, sincere emotion.
Most famously when his friend Damon Hill won the world title in 1996.
Damon Hill exits the chicane and wins the Japanese Grand Prix, and I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat. Now, for real spectacular driving, watch this.
His frenetic style wasn't without its gaffes.
Bernie, it's some 17 years since you bought McLaren. You've had some good times and you've had some bad times. What do you remember best?
I don't remember buying McLaren.
But the mistakes only increased his popularity.
Looks through a completely clean windscreen, and that's the big advantage, of course, of being in front.
His energy and enthusiasm endeared him to millions. And when he covered his final British Grand Prix in 2001, the affection was plain to see. One of sport's most imitated voices, but there'll only ever be one Murray Walker.
Well, tributes have been pouring in. Former Formula One world champion Damon Hill knew Murray Walker very well. I spoke to him in the last few minutes and he told me he'll be hugely missed.
I got to know him in working capacity when I was on the way up, and also as a front-running Formula One driver. He'd be there if there was anything I had to reveal, or he was going to quiz me about. So a little bit of, he was a journalist as well, so he'd sometimes ask the difficult questions, and he was above all else. He was a global voice of motorsport. He managed to make himself that. And I just watched a clip of him commenting on Jeremy Clark's got him to commentate on snooker, and he somehow managed to make snooker motor racing. I don't know how he did it. He had a magic.
It is almost impossible to describe how he did it, but you're right, he transcended the sport. It's really hard to think of an equivalence in any other sport. You knew him, Damon, as you say. What was it about him that made him so unique and a global name?
I think he understood communication. He understood what the fans want. He didn't want to be the show, but he ended up being, very much part of the show, or one of the appealing things, without him being too intrusive. And he'd bring you the sport. And because he really genuinely loved motorsport and was fascinated by Formula One and all things with an engine, he communicated that enthusiasm, and people were drawn in by that, and they recognised that as well. And I think also what he did do, which was he managed to he wasn't too big to assume that he knew more than everyone else. So he played it down, and sometimes I think that helped people feel that they were getting the hang of this, and that he'd helped them, or they knew more than he did about the sport, which is a quite neat trick, I think.
Damon Hill there paying tribute to Murray Walker, who's done.
So it's ready. It is go, 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 go.
And the voice of Formula One, Murray Walker, has died at the age of 97. The broadcaster Murray Walker, described as the voice of Formula One, has died. He was 97. In a career spanning 6 decades, his distinctive commentary style and passion for motorsport won him fans right around the world. Andy Swiss looks back at his life.
So it's ready. It is go, 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 go. And Schumacher leads. Brilliant start. Brilliant.
Exuberant, excitable and utterly unmistakable.
By the Austrian driver in the black Sauber.
Murray Walker was the high-octane voice behind a high-octane sport.
Cross gets away well.
It was once said that even in his quieter moments, he sounded like his trousers were on fire.
That's it. Bang, bang, and off.
His passion came from his father, Graham Walker, who raced motorcycles and was himself a commentator, often sharing the duties with young Murray.
The sensation is that Tommy Wood went through not on time, not after time, but ahead of time.
And after commentating on his first British Grand Prix in 1949, Murray Walker became an integral part of Formula One. But in a sport of inevitable risk, he was faced with tragedy too.
World motor racing champion Ayrton Senna has been pronounced clinically dead.
When the great Ayrton Senna died in a crash in 1994, Walker's shock was only too clear.
This is the blackest day for Grand Prix racing that I can remember in the many, many years that I've been covering the sport.
Walker never hid his emotions, most famously when his friend Damon Hill won the world title in 1996.
Damon Hill exits the chicane and wins the Japanese Grand Prix. And I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Because he really genuinely loved motorsport and was fascinated by Formula One and all things with an engine, he communicated that enthusiasm, and people were drawn in by that, and they recognised that as well.
For real spectacular driving, watch this.
His frenetic style wasn't without its gaffes.
Looks through a completely clean windscreen, and that's the big advantage, of course, of being in front.
His energy and enthusiasm endeared him to millions, and when he covered his final British Grand Prix in 2001, the affection was plain to see. One of sport's most imitated voices, but there'll only ever be one Murray Walker.
The motor racing commentator and broadcaster Murray Walker, who's died at the age of 97.
With all the very latest from around the world and here at home now, it's the ITV News.
Thousands turn out for a cancelled vigil in memory of murdered Sarah Everard. Wales stay on track for a Grand Slam in the Six Nations and...
It's go! Milner gets away and Schumacher gets away. Better!
The voice of Formula One, Murray Walker, falls silent at the age of 97. And finally, the voice of Formula One, Murray Walker, died today at the age of 97. To millions of fans, both here and around the world, the much-loved TV commentator embodied the very spirit of motor racing. Such was his passion. He was once described as talking like a man whose trousers were on fire. Mark McQuillan looks back at his long and illustrious career.
Few voices are as distinctive or as synonymous with a specific sport. Murray Walker was the voice of Formula One to millions, and little wonder after a broadcasting career spanning more than 50 years. He commentated on many memorable races and effortlessly encapsulated the emotion of iconic moments.
And wins the Japanese Grand Prix. And I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Like British driver Damon Hill's solitary World Championship triumph. Hill is among those to have paid tribute on social media, saying, "Thanks for so much, the legend will never die." While Jenson Button added, "Murray was the voice of F1 for so many years, he put his heart and soul into commentating." And Lewis Hamilton said, "You made the sport so much more exciting and captivating, you will never be forgotten." That excitement came from his knowledge, energy and occasional mishaps.
3 lights, 4 lights, 5 laps. Pause. Go!
And further proof that Walker didn't take himself too seriously came when he teamed up with Hill for this advert.
Hill's going for it, and he's spun.
Having followed his father's passion for motorsport, he competed, then commentated, rising to the very top with the BBC and ITV before bowing out in 2001.
That's the last from me. All I can say is that it always has been a pleasure.
Murray Walker will be remembered for his talent, enthusiasm and charisma, and for being one of the great commentators of any era in any sport.
Murray Walker, who's died aged 97. And that is it. The weather forecast is next, but from all of us here on the Weekend News team, thanks for watching and good night.
Welcome back. Part 2 of the press preview. Still with me, Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface and the columnist for The Times and Sunday Times, Matthew Syed. Matthew, let's look at the front page of the Daily Star. I mean, what a legend Murray Walker was. And today we've been remembering him and watching back some of the classic clips.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic sports commentator. His enthusiasm was infectious. He commentated at a time when sport was often covered on terrestrial, on network television, and would command viewing figures above 10 million, sometimes over 20 million. And so these people were not kind of, people like Murray Walker and David Coleman and Peter Alliss, who also the golf commentator who passed away recently. They were kind of like evangelists, taking sport to people who may have switched over onto BBC Two without a deep interest in golf or athletics or Formula One. And I think Murray Walker was one of the iconic figures of sport. Some of the testimonies that have come out in tribute to him have been extremely moving, from Damon Hill and Sir Jackie Stewart. and he will be very sorely missed.
Yeah, and that voice was just so incredible, wasn't it? You're absolutely right. We really will miss him. Moving on to the front of the